Hey everybody, welcome back. Steven here, Northwest Small Batch Brewing. Let me pour a beer and we'll get started here. This is it's kind of funny, I guess not really, but I kept passing this beer in the supermarket for months probably. And I like the can art. It looks cool. And generally speaking, I've usually liked Widmer. Keep in mind, Widmer is one of the oldest breweries in Portland. And they sold out at some point. I think it was Anheuser-Busch InBev. I could be wrong. But they sold out to one of the big boys. And kind of stopped drinking their beer at that point, because I like to support the small guys, you know. And then recently, they were sold back to the original, I think, owners of Widmer. And it became a craft brewery again. I think there's a rumor going around that they sold again to Tilray or something. So I don't know. I do still like their Hefeweizen. I don't buy it too often, but anyway, this is their Hoppy Red, and the reason I'm laughing is because I thought it looked so good, and you know the can looked great, but it turned out it doesn't taste so much like a red. It tastes like a very bitter IPA, very bitter. So I'm struggling to get through this 6-pack. Anyway, I should get going on this video. And stay till the end. By the way, I have a quick little announcement at the end. So this is about rehydrating yeast. First of all, I think I've talked about this in a prior video or two a bit. But basically, these days, most yeast manufacturers say you don't need to rehydrate your yeast. You just sprinkle it on top of your wort. You don't want to mix it in with a mixer. It can actually hurt the cell walls of the yeast. Just sprinkle it and let it naturally do its thing. That being said, is there still a case for rehydrating yeast? I personally don't do it, but I can see potentially a case where someone might want to do it. If you have a really high gravity beer, you're making a wine, basically, like a wheat wine or a barley wine or something like that. Yeah, you're using a lot more yeast, and I have a beer coming up that's going to be kind of like that. I'm not going to rehydrate the yeast probably, but that is a case where it could be helpful because you want to make sure your yeast is, ready to go and jumping, and maybe gets a head start. Rehydrating the yeast is not the same as making a starter. First of all, let's be clear. You're not actually increasing the cell count when you rehydrate yeast. You're simply getting it ready. It is slightly less of a shock when you put it into the wort, that sort of thing. It doesn't actually increase the cell count. So, how do you do it? So, first of all, you got your packet of yeast, right? The yeast varies in weight depending on which yeast. Like this is 11.5 grams. On average, you're going to get around a 15-gram packet of yeast, but it really just varies from yeast to yeast and the company. So the first thing is how much water you want to use to rehydrate your yeast. And the deal is it depends on how much yeast you have. It's based on the weight. So let's say you have a 15-gram packet of yeast. You want to use 10 times the weight in water when you rehydrate. And that sounds like a lot of math. Oh, I'm going to get that bitter beer face going on. So it sounds like a lot of math, but it's really simple. So say it's 15 grams of yeast times 10 is 150, right? 15 times 10 is 150. All right, 150 grams of water is 150 grams of water. If you don't want to do that, you can go online to Google and convert it. That's around 2/3 of a cup of water. All right. So that's the first thing. How much water do you do? There you go. You've got the math. Now, the temperature of the water matters. You don't want it to be super hot. You don't want it to be super cold. You want it to be just above room temperature. So the temperature of the water should be somewhere between 30 and 35 Celsius, which is like 86 to 95 Fahrenheit. So just a little warmer than room temperature. And don't guess at this. Please don't guess. Use a thermometer. Back in the day when they said it should be, the temperature of blood or something like that. I'm not kidding. That's a real thing that would come up in recipes. People are like, well, what the hell? How do I measure that? So just use a thermometer, and get the temperature accurate. All right. So you take your yeast, and you got this water, right? And you warm it up. Before I go further, please just use tap water on this. Don't use RO water or distilled water because there's nothing in it. There's no minerals, no salts, nothing. Now, if you want to use your distilled or RO water after you have made your adjustments for minerals and salts, go for it. That's fine. But if you haven't, then use spring water or tap water or something like that. Don't use your wort. All right, that's not a good, also not good. It will shock your yeast. That's the whole point here. You want to rehydrate it before you introduce it into any kind of wort. So there you go. So you're using standard water or, your your water that you've treated. And it's going to be at the right temperature. And you're going to sprinkle the wort on top of the water. And you can swirl it a little bit, but remember what I said earlier, don't go crazy stirring it because you can break the cell walls of the yeast. So just be very gentle with it. There's no need to get crazy. All right, so you let it sit there for it takes about 15 minutes. Most of the yeast will probably sink to the bottom. You'll get some foaming. That's a good sign, by the way. That means you're starting to get some activity and it's, viable. And then you want to just give it a little swirl to try to get any leftover yeast that's on the top to go mix in and get completely mixed in. Give it maybe 5 more minutes after you do that. So now we're sitting at 20 minutes for those of you who are keeping count. And at that point, you can then stir it into your wort. You're ready. You're good to go, right? Now remember, if you're using more than 1 packet of yeast and you're rehydrating several packets, you need to account for that and make a larger amount of water to rehydrate. Okay, that's rehydrating. Like I said, it's on the fence as to whether it's even really something you need to do anymore. I really don't ever do it. I have done it before, but these days yeast companies are so good about making robust yeast with not even needing to rehydrate it or do anything. A lot of them don't even want you to aerate your wort anymore. So you're kind of covered. All right, so that's rehydrating yeast. Let me get to the announcement, and then I can cut this short for you. So if you watch any of my shorts, I usually do Hot Tip Thursdays, like a short on some kind of hot tip or process or something I'm brewing, and I like to wear a different YouTuber's t-shirt, so I help promote their channel a little bit during those shorts. I try to wear a different one each time. The problem is some YouTubers don't have t-shirts that you can purchase from them. And I thought about it because I don't have t-shirts that you can purchase. And so I decided to give it a try. So let me first say, I've set this up so I do not get a profit from this. Whatever price you see is the price that company is charging for the shirt, I guess the material, and actually printing the shirt and mailing it to you. I've set it up so when you set these up, this is behind the scenes here a little bit, but you can tell it how much profit you want to make off of each t-shirt or whatever it is you're selling. I set it to 0. I'm not making a profit. Here's the point. I don't see why anybody's going to want to buy a Northwest Small Batch t-shirt and pay extra money for me to get a profit. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. Really, for me, it's just a matter of if somebody's interested in helping promote my channel, I'm going to try to make it so that it is the cheapest possible way so that somebody could do that. So that being said, if you're interested in getting a t-shirt, I think I have some stickers. I'm working on adding stuff to it. I've got 2 t-shirts and maybe a sticker. I don't know. Anyway, the link is in the bio, in the description to the website. If you want to get one, you can get one. If you don't, you don't. There's no stress on that because, like I said, I don't make anything from it. I just thought I'd throw that out there in case that was something anybody was interested in. That being said, I'll be back in another week with another video. I am currently brewing something that should be fun, and I can't wait to show that to you. So I will see you then, and until next time, keep on brewing, everybody. Cheers.